In today's video, Scott Bessent just made a major announcement regarding inflation, and of course, Democrats are losing their mind over it. Also, Ukraine and Russia war. The president introduced a 28-point peace plan, and Jasmine Crockett has some interesting thoughts regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene. We'll show you both sides of all these stories in this video, but let's start with what Scott Bessent had to say. Take a listen.
Grocery prices will be front and center this week as Americans do their Thanksgiving holiday shopping. The White House has been saying that prices are going down, and in some cases they are. We've got here some data from the American Farm Bureau Foundation, and they say the average cost of dinner for 10 people will cost about $55 this year. That's down 5% from last year. Still, that is higher than 4 years ago. Prices for stuffing, cranberries, and dinner rolls, they drop, but other items like sweet potatoes, green peas, milk, and whipping cream have gone up. The president says affordability should be a Republican word, but a Fox News poll shows 76% of voters view the economy negatively. Voters also say by a 31-point margin, the president's economic policies have hurt rather than helped them. That's mainly driven, though, by Democrats who say they've been harmed. But National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett is optimistic about next year. Here he is speaking to Maria Bartiromo on Sunday Morning Futures.
It's going to be an absolute blockbuster year ahead. And one of the signals you just mentioned, the jobs report, that was double the expectation, the blowout jobs report. We've got GDP now for the last 2 quarters, almost 4% on average, maybe even a little bit above. And we're going to have a little bit of a hiccup in the 4th quarter because of the silly shutdown. But then things are really lifting off.
All right. So she was right about one thing in that clip, which is this week is going to be all about affordability as far as what people will be aware of as they continue to shop. And even after this week, when we get into Christmas, people are going to be noticing. And that's why it's very important, which I think is just a natural way we are actually about to head here, where the administration is going to really triple down on the messaging regarding the economy, affordability, and what they're doing about it. I think in hindsight, 2020, they probably could have been talking about it earlier, probably 3 months before today. But we are where we are today, which brings us to this big announcement from Scott Bessent, where he says there's no recession risk. Now, we were able to get this story from Ground News. If you guys follow me, you already know where I'm going. Ground News is a great tool you can use to see the full picture of what's being reported from mainstream media. And they also give you the idea of what the story is all about right up front in these bullet points. So number one, Scott Bessent made this announcement. Number two, he also said that this government shutdown caused a 1.5% hit to our GDP, which also caused us to slow down economically. Now, there's two sides to this, and we're going to get to that. But first, let's hear it in Scott Bessent's words. Take a listen.
Let me ask you big picture, Mr. Secretary. You said earlier this month, I'm going to quote you, quote, "I think there are sectors of the economy that are in a recession." Kevin Hassett, director of the National Economic Council, said, quote, "We're starting to see pockets of the economy that look like they might be in a recession." Which parts of the economy do you believe have dipped into a recession?
Well, clearly housing has been struggling, and interest rate sensitive sectors have been in a recession. And the other thing that was not helpful, Kristen, was the longest government shutdown in history. It was 1.5% hit to GDP. The 9,500 flights canceled, and the Democrats didn't care that they hurt the American economy. Anything to stop Donald Trump.
Well, big picture, is the country at risk, the entire country at risk of being in a recession?
No, I am very confident about 2026, because what we are going to see is the president has done peace deals, tax deals, and trade deals, but one big, beautiful bill. And to go back to affordability has 2 components. So it's price of goods and real incomes. So under the one big, beautiful bill, especially for working Americans, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, auto deductibility and loans for American cars.
All right. So number one, which I think is the most important thing here, is that when tax season rolls around and the money hits people's bank account, their moods are going to change. No question about it. All right. Number two, which is also important, which he says here, according to Ground News, that he published an opinion piece in the Washington Post urging Republicans to end the Senate filibuster and put the Senate on notice if Senate Democrats close the government again. Meaning, when we get to January 30th and the current continuing resolution expires, Democrats will shut down the government. And if you don't, as Republicans, end the filibuster so you can pass more of President Trump's agenda, I mean, next year is going to be a bloodbath. That's essentially what he is getting at. And guys, we were able to gather all of this in a very clear and concise manner, giving you the bottom line by using this tool called Ground News. I encourage you to use it for yourself. Shows you all stories, and it gives you in a bullet point fashion, as you guys can see here, so that you can critically think for yourself. So if you want to use this tool for yourself, all you have to do is go to ground.news/Devori, or you could download the mobile app. Just use promo code Devori, and it's going to give you access to everything that I showed you in this video, including 40% off the Vantage plan.
Let's take a closer look at this new CBS News YouGov poll, which shows across the board, Trump's approval numbers are underwater. His immigration policies, 45% approval rating, 36% approval of his handling of the economy, only 32% approve of how Trump is tackling inflation. These are issues the president ran on. It's what he won on in 2024. Philip, what went wrong?
Well, what went wrong is, first of all, that he made a number of promises about prices that he was never going to be able to keep. He said he'd be able to bring prices down, not just stop inflation, but bring prices down, which is really outside of his power and also unlikely given how economics generally works. But the second thing that went wrong is he went from being the outsider complaining about the government to being the guy in charge of the government. And when you're in charge of the government, that means you're in charge of the things that people are seeing when they're looking at prices, especially if you're someone who says, oh, the president has the ability to affect these. If you are then the president and you can't affect them, well, that's on you. Part of the decline we're seeing is presidents come in, they're relatively more popular, and then their support fades over time. So part of this is sort of the built-in, the waning of the honeymoon period we talk about. But it really is dramatic. Across the board, across issues, we're seeing this sort of decline, particularly on the economy for Trump.
Well, the one thing that they always leave out when they speak this way about the president and his approval ratings is that they don't give you the full picture, meaning his approval rating is still higher than Biden's was at this time, higher than Obama's was at this time, and higher than when George Bush was in office, okay? So I think that kind of gives you the full picture that, yeah, he might be underwater on certain issues because of the timing of these polls. There's no question about that. I think, again, the messaging, you could definitely criticize that to an extent up to this point. But when you look at the full picture and you go back through history, you find, well, he's exactly where all presidents usually are. So I don't think it's really something to lose sleep over, just so you guys understand. All right, now let's go to this clip from Scott Bessent, because this is the one that's actually getting him a lot of backlash regarding inflation. Take a listen.
Kristen, I can tell you that the Council on Economic Advisors has a study. You know the best way to bring your inflation rate down? Move from a blue state to a red state. Blue state inflation is 0.5% higher, and that is because they don't deregulate, they keep prices up, energy is higher.
Just according to the consumer prices, inflation was at 2.3% back in April. In September, 3%. But
now, I don't know about you, but I wasn't offended by what Scott Bessent said, maybe because I'm the person who literally did that. We moved from California to Texas. So why don't we do the research together? If you're going to move from Los Angeles to Austin, is there a difference? Well, according to ChatGPT, and we'll switch to another one here shortly, the housing is a huge difference. We're talking $1,500 to $2,500 a month on housing, okay? State income tax, no brainer there. Utilities and energy, no brainer there, okay? Gasoline, no brainer there. Groceries as well. And the only thing that Texas is lacking in is property taxes, right? So that's where you'll lose if you move to Texas. But that's only one area where you got 5 other areas where California is dwarfing what Texas is doing as far as the impact of inflation. Let's go to Gemini and have the same results. They actually do the numbers line by line. Bottom line is, if we could see here, it's going to be a difference of about $2,500 here, right? As far as remaining disposable income, this right there at the top of your screen. So again, I didn't find what he said as offensive, but if you're on the left and you're obviously sensitive to the truth, you're going to get triggered. Okay, and now we're going to go to our next story here, and this is about the Russia and Ukraine war. As you know, it's been dragging along, and the president has introduced a 28-point peace plan. The left says that this is a form of surrender, while the administration says, listen, you guys are wasting people's time. Let's go on and wrap this up. Now, before I give you my analysis on this, I want you guys to hear the summary of it. Take a listen.
Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is leading a delegation in Geneva to talk with European security officials about this plan that's received backlash this weekend from Western leaders and some U.S. lawmakers. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live with the latest. Hey, Trey.
Jackie, good morning. Talks are taking place today in Geneva, Switzerland, aimed at ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. These conversations include officials from the U.S., Ukraine, and a variety of European countries, all trying to rally behind Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke about the negotiations and a 28-point peace plan that has circulated in recent days.
I have signed a decree on the composition of the Ukrainian delegation and approved all relevant directives. Our representatives know how to protect Ukrainian national interests and exactly what is needed to prevent Russia from carrying out a third invasion, another strike against Ukraine.
Zelensky did not go into details about the 28-point peace plan that would require Ukraine to give up more territory in the east of their country and limit the size of their military. Some U.S. senators say that Secretary of State Marco Rubio told them the plan was a Russian wish list and not the actual plan. A State Department spokesperson responded to those comments, saying they were blatantly false, with Secretary of State Rubio saying in an X post, quote, "The peace proposal was authored by the U.S. It is offered as a strong framework for ongoing negotiations. It is based on input from the Russian side, but it is also based on previous and ongoing input from Ukraine."
All right, so there's different perspectives to this peace plan. If you're America First and you have become allergic to foreign wars, you don't actually care what happens as long as we are no longer a part of this war in any capacity. Okay, now the president has done a great job of requiring NATO to cough up the money regarding this war and weapons, etc. And so that's good on him. But the bottom line is there are people who are just tired of hearing about this, tired of seeing America be involved. And so that's one perspective. The second perspective are people who are very sympathetic towards Ukraine. They have not agreed on anything the president has proposed since day one regarding ending this war with Ukraine and Russia. They believe he's been soft. And finally, the third perspective is that whether you are a sympathizer of Russia or you're not, you believe that Ukraine has been losing this war since day one. They have lost territory to Russia. And in all history, when you lose territory, it no longer belongs to you. That is the consequences of war. And so that's kind of like, if I'm just going to be the bottom line of these different perspectives, is what is going on at this moment in time. Now, let's go to this interview on Fox News Sunday, because there was actually a survey or a poll that was taken from Americans and how they felt about this war. Take a listen.
We've got brand new polling from the Reagan National Defense Forum. This is their survey asking the question, which approach to resolving the conflict between Russia and Ukraine do you think the U.S. should push for? At the top of the list, we've got support Ukraine's full territorial sovereignty. Next down on the list, 20 points behind, Ukraine cedes territory in exchange for a ceasefire and security guarantees. What we know of this deal, it sounds like it's going to ask a lot from the Ukrainians as far as giving up territory, including some that's not even currently under Russian control. What's your take?
Well, I think this administration, by the way, President Trump ran on the idea of resolving this bloody war. I mean, this is a meat grinder at this point, and he wants to stop the killing. I think President Trump approaches this as a realist, right? You take the world as it is, not how you want it to be, not how you wish it would be, but actually how it is. And the truth of the matter is, and a lot of people won't say it, is the Ukrainians have been losing for a long time. They've lost 20% of their territory. They have a manpower problem. They have a munitions problem. I think what President Trump is trying to accomplish is maintain Ukrainian sovereignty, make sure there's a pathway to rebuild the country, and also lessen the likelihood that this will ever happen again.
Now, I would say after listening to a lot of the reactions and analysis, Eric Schmidt had the best summary of the position of this administration. They can care less about history. President Trump wants a win, and he wants it now. And this is the peace proposal that he has introduced, okay? Now, whether or not it's fair to Ukraine, fair to Russia, it doesn't sound like to me that this administration really cares about that, okay? I'm just telling you what I've been able to gather so far. However, secondly, if you're going to Democrats in their perspective, you know it's all negative, okay? They say this is a 100% peace plan from the perspective of Russia with no Ukrainian input whatsoever. And Senator Warner made that point earlier today. Take a listen.
The State Department is saying that, yes, the U.S. put together this proposal, but that it had both Russian and Ukrainian input. And now these talks continue today. We know the vice president had a long phone call with President Zelensky. Now Secretary Rubio, Steve Witkoff are there. And you heard the president say this wasn't his final offer. So it sounds like this is maybe an opening negotiation.
Isn't this, again, this kind of chaotic approach where it doesn't seem like one group knows what the other group is doing. Clearly, this plan was at least initially laid out as simply Russian input and no Ukrainian input. Now they're saying there has been Ukrainian input. Now the president is changing his mind again about whether this is a final offer or not. End of the day, we all want to see peace, but we don't want to see a peace that rewards Vladimir Putin.
Now, Senator Warner makes a good point. We don't want to see a proposal that rewards the aggressor, right? It's Russia who invaded Ukraine. That is objectively true. But if you think for a second, I'm going to believe what Warner has to say, knowing he has Trump derangement syndrome, knowing Democrats have literally advocated on public and national TV for the president to fail in all of this. Yeah, you think I'm going to listen to what he has to say? Probably not. And that's the problem that in our politics is that they have been so tribal and biased. I can't take them seriously. Even if they have experience in this, how do I know what they're saying is really coming from a place of like, hey, we really want peace. We really want to see the president succeed. You can't see that from them because we haven't seen that from them. And for the record, these are the same people that would happily fund this war if they could with their own tax dollars. So I'm sorry if I'm not really buying what he has to say in that regard. Now, I guess Vladimir Putin did respond to this peace proposal. Take a listen.
У нас этот текст есть.
We have this text. We received it through existing channels of communication with the U.S. administration. I believe it can be used as the basis of a final peaceful settlement, but it has not been discussed with us in detail.
Now, if you guys are interested in knowing what my personal opinion is on the matter, I am a results-driven type of guy. And at the end of the day, I don't care how we get there, if we're going to continue to engage in these conversations and broker peace, then the end result needs to be peace. And how we get there, I'm not really a stickler on. Now, there's a lot of people involved in history, involved in, wanting to see Ukraine and Russia and all of this stuff wrap up in their own particular way based on the way they see foreign policy, based on how they feel about Russia, whether they are the biggest threat or the smallest threat. A lot of that influence how someone wants this to be done. I just think the average American citizen is not thinking about Russia and Ukraine when they go pay bills. That's just a reality. So we want the president to be successful here, but I definitely would rather the president focus on economic issues, right? So if he can get this wrapped up, even more power to him. And if he does, I don't understand how you can really argue against a Nobel Peace Prize. All right, now let's go to our next update. And this is more reactions regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene resignation announcement. Now, first, we're going to start with Jasmine Ghetto Crockett because her reaction is nothing short of that, in my opinion. So why don't we take a listen?
Shocking announcement from Congresswoman Greene. What went through your mind when you first heard she was going to resign on January 5th?
You know what? Honestly, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You're on the other side of the president for 1 week and you can't take the heat. Imagine what it is to sit in my shoes, to not only be on the opposite side of him, but to have people like her who are constantly fanning the flames of hate. And imagine what those threats look like when you literally are someone like me. But at the end of the day, I know that I serve the people of Texas 30. And so my job isn't to be there and necessarily do whatever is going to make the president not be on my back, but instead is to focus on making sure that I can push forward with policies that are positive for Texas 30.
You know what's interesting about what Jasmine Crockett just said? The first part I agree with, clearly Marjorie Taylor Greene changed some way, shape, or form. And a lot of people just chalk it up to Epstein, Israel, and the fact that she's not going to be successful running as a senator because she wasn't going to get his endorsement. Fine. But more importantly, towards the end there, she said she's focused on pushing policies that would impact Texas 30. Can anybody name me a policy that's been authored by Jasmine Crockett that actually got passed by Congress? Can anybody do that? I don't think it even exists. Okay, it's interesting. Here's what the president just said moments ago. The Republican Party has never been so united as it is right now, other than Rand Paul Jr., also known as Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Brown, and a couple of other lowlifes. And other than the fact that many want the election threatening filibuster terminated, and some don't, there is great spirit and cohesion. Plus, the Republican Party is much bigger than it was when I announced in 2015 or ever was before. Many millions more members. We now have the strongest border ever, big tax cuts, the best economy, highest stock market, and so much more. But the best is yet to come. Now, if you guys haven't caught on by now, the president likes to suggest optimism when he speaks. even if results don't match that optimism all the way. Okay, we were just talking about the economy. Let's just be objective about it, right? The economy has not really improved for the average working American. Doesn't mean it won't. It might come March. Now let's go to Shermichael Singleton on CNN because I like his perspective about what happened and what might happen moving forward. Take a listen.
What do you think about her running for president?
I absolutely don't see that. I've also heard people saying, well, maybe she'll run for Senate in Georgia. That's unrealistic to me. I think the president's new posture against her makes that very difficult for MAGA-leaning Republicans in the state. So then the second question becomes, well, could she run as a more traditional conservative, contextually speaking, someone like a Kemp? Well, those Republicans absolutely dislike Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I'm thinking there's some other opportunity, perhaps in the media ecosystem, that she's looking at. But I think her future life in politics is over, Jake.
What do you think about the speculation she might run for president?
I think she's a swampy grifter, and she's going to do whatever it takes to make money. I mean, Marjorie's pension does not vest until January the 4th, so she's resigning on January the 5th. She also knows that by dropping out, she makes life hard on Mike Johnson for 6 months. We'll go down to 435, four members of the House. Majority still 218. She's undermined Mike Johnson every chance she can get. She's undermined the president every chance she can get. Also, she can draw attention and clickbait to herself. So I think her next move will be something to make money.
Okay, let's go back to objectivity here. The messages that she started to communicate, especially towards the back end of this year, I think were rooted in a lot of truth. And then I think it's also true, objectively, that she has a bright future ahead of her because there's a market for criticizing the president. We know that. I mean, there's a podcast right now on YouTube, one of the most listened to podcasts, and all it's about is bashing the president. So there's money in that. And number three, I think a lot of people are stunned at the same time, knowing that she was a fierce defender of the president and she has flip-flopped. I think that's all true at the same time. And so wherever things land for her, it will be what she ultimately deserves. I mean, that's just the reality to it. And hopefully, some of the messages that she did communicate, which I do agree with as far as the economic reality here, that Republicans pick up on because we have a midterm election to win. And that's just how I see everything. Okay, let's hear from you guys in the comments section below to these stories today. Starting with the economy itself. I mean, listen, I ask you guys all the time, do you feel it yourself? And two, who do you blame more for the economy? Also, what do you make of the Russia-Ukraine 28-piece plan? I didn't go into depth about every single point, but I gave you the bottom line to it. What do you want to see happen? Do you agree with Ukraine giving up the territory, especially the territory that's already been seized by Russia? Let me know what your stance is on that. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene, just give me all your thoughts and everything you got in the comments section below. And now this takes us to our next video where Democrats have suffered an embarrassing setback as the mainstream media is now calling them out and confronting them over that video that is clearly misleading for the members of the military, where they encourage them to defy the orders from the commander-in-chief. If you guys missed out on that update and more, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.